G'day y'all, today we are back again doing another Does It Dupe? I think I'm going to start officially calling it that, Does It Dupe? And today's contender is Vintage Radio by Lattafa. Is this a true dupe of Initio Parfums Paragon? Let's find out. Okay, so unfortunately I could not help myself. I've technically already opened this and smelled it and worn it, so there won't be a first impression, but I didn't want to deprive you guys of the unboxing experience. So I just want to show you guys what it was like unboxing this. I saved the packaging for you. God, I know, I'm so charitable. So when you open it up, it's got a nice case. As always, these unit cartons are so beautiful. They always go above and beyond considering the price of these scents. I'm in Australia. I bought mine for, I think, 85 Australian dollars. And when you take it out, there it is. Got the nice foam slot at the bottom there. So there you go. There is a quick summary of the unboxing experience. So if you guys aren't familiar with my dupe comparison videos, I like to do these in two parts. The first part, I spray each fragrance on one wrist and kind of give you my initial thoughts on the initial spray. Then I step away for an hour or two, let it dry down, let it warm up on the skin, and then I come back and reassess the fragrance at that point and then give you my final thoughts. So before we jump in, let's talk about notes. For Paragon, you've got top notes of sage, lavender, and bergamot. In the heart, you've got Palo Santo, plum, and pepper. And in the dry down, you've got oud and sandalwood. So for Vintage Radio, you also have top notes of lavender, sage, and bergamot. Heart notes of plum, Palo Santo, and black pepper. And a dry down of sandalwood and amberwood. Quite similar notes with the exception of the base. But will it recreate the magic? That's the question. So honestly, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I don't even remember which side I normally spray the original on, but I'm going to spray the original on my left hand. So I'm gonna do two sprays. I try and do them as equally as I can. All right, let's go. Initial spray, blast of Palo Santo and pepper. You get a little bit of a sweetness from plum, but it's really not overpowering. The bergamot and the sage is also very forward. It's very bright, it's very fresh, it's very citrusy. The plum actually adds a bit of a smoothness to Paragon, and I do love that. It is quite an aromatic fragrance, but it has a little bit of sweetness. It's a beautiful unisex scent, and the pepper is really not too bitter. It's just enough to beautifully complement the Palo Santo in here. It's very warm, it's very inviting, but yet still remains fresh and citrusy and bright. This is a beautiful, if you've smelled this before, you already know, it's a beautiful anytime fragrance. I honestly would wear this anywhere, anytime, any season. Great unisex scent. Anyone could wear this. Now for Vintage Radio. And I'll be spraying this on my right. Obviously a little bit heavier of a spray. So right away, the difference I notice in Vintage Radio is it's a little bit sweeter. And in the plum, there's a little bit of a sharpness, like so minute. Honestly, if you weren't smelling it up close like this, you probably wouldn't even notice it. I would say it's a little bit more fruity off the top. So you got more of that plum. You don't have quite as much of that depth that oud in Paragon brings, but you still have a very beautiful Palo Santo note that's complemented beautifully with the black pepper. You've got a little bit of a warmth from the amberwood, and it still remains quite bright and citrusy at the top. There's a little bit of depth and sensuality that maybe you're missing in Vintage Radio that you have in Paragon. A lot of that probably is the oud. Vintage Radio, I think, is just a little sweeter. It's not quite as deep and sensual. It's a little lighter. It's a little fruitier and crisper. God, they're both so beautiful. In Paragon, there's a bit more of a smokiness in Paragon that you're not really getting in Vintage Radio. To be quite honest with you, these differences are so small. Like, I always say this, but you probably will not pick up these differences unless you're smelling these fragrances side by side like this. Honestly, they are so similar, and I'm excited to compare these once they completely dry down and warm up on the skin. So what I will do now is I'm going to step away for an hour or so, and come back and reassess them and give you my final thoughts.
1 hour later.
Hey guys, so it's been about, I think about an hour or so. So before I give you my final thoughts, there are a couple of things that I noticed as the scent was developing after I left this room. So there's definitely a more leathery, smoky facet to Paragon, and that could be the oud doing that. In Vintage Radio, the sweetness is a bit brighter. It's almost a bit greener, a bit fresher of a sweetness, and it doesn't really have that smokiness that Paragon does. So those were the biggest differences that I noticed as the scent was developing. But now that it's been an hour or so, the difference is not as big. I mean, really, the dry down is way more similar. And you could even say with the amount of sweetness in Vintage Radio that sticks around, perhaps could make it more feminine leaning, whereas maybe the oud in Paragon gives it more of that deep, sensual, leather, smoky facet. You could see that as maybe more masculine. Now, I had my husband smell these, and that was kind of his impression as well. He thought that Paragon was more masculine smelling, and the Lattafa version was a bit more feminine, a bit brighter, a bit greener. And I agree. Although I think they are very beautiful unisex fragrances, I definitely don't see anything stopping anyone from wearing either of these. They're both really beautiful. One is just more sensual, deeper, smokier with that oud from Paragon, and Vintage Radio is a bit brighter. The sweetness from the plum sticks around a bit more. It's a bit of a slightly green tart sweetness. Honestly, overall, I will just say the scent alone, not even comparing it to Paragon, blown away. Like, I love the scent. I already know it's going to be one of my favorites and my most reached for fragrances just because of how universal I feel that it is. I feel like I could wear this one any time of the day, any time of the year, even if it's hot outside, which today it's been pretty hot. I feel like I could wear this one and feel like it's very appropriate. And I will just say right now, like obviously, like I mentioned, I have worn this a couple of times. It sticks. Like, I actually, when I very first sprayed this, I sprayed it just on one arm and I was sitting on the couch, and I shit you not, last night I was sitting on the couch and I could still smell it. So this was like a week later. I could still smell it on the couch. So maybe be careful of what you spray it on because it might stick around. I mean, if you're washing it, it might not be as much of an issue, but this stuff sticks, okay? I was very impressed by the longevity, and I'm happy about that considering that it's a brand new opened bottle. I didn't have to let it sit or chill, put it in perfume jail for 6 months. Just straight out of the box, it's a monster. Super happy with Vintage Radio. This has got to be one of my favorite Lattafa scents, for sure, without a doubt. So I would highly recommend this one. Whether or not you have smelled its inspiration, Paragon, it's a beautiful scent on its own, and it's, I think, completely wearable for anyone. It is one of my favorites so far from Lattafa, and 2024 off to a really beautiful start. I'm loving the start. Let's keep this going. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you plan on picking this one. Have you already picked it up? What do you think of it? Have you compared both the original and Lattafa's version? Are you just as impressed as I am? Because I'm just blown away by how good of a fragrance it is itself, but also it's a very good inspiration scent off of Paragon. If you enjoy comparisons like these, then I highly suggest subscribing. I think going forward, I do plan to do a lot more Middle Eastern dupe videos. I love doing these comparisons. I love finding and comparing inspiration scents to designer or niche or luxury fragrances. I love finding something great for a lot less money. So I have a lot more of these up my sleeve. So if you enjoy these, then definitely subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Oh yeah.